The ANC's first Deputy Secretary General, who is leading a delegation to Britain and Northern Ireland to attend the Labour Party's annual conference, and the gathering, of course, looking at geopolitics at a time where things are happening right now, the Russia-Ukraine war. They're also looking at the just energy transition, looking at what also is happening when it comes to the Middle East. Of course, this is part of the big concern as well. And, earlier on, when you look at what happened in that particular conference, the briefing by Labour leader Keir Starmer saying that politics feels broken and working people are currently finding themselves under pressure. But let's talk about this particular conference, but also looking at what is happening in the Middle East as we speak to the ANC's first Deputy Secretary General, as well as Chairperson of the International Relations Subcommittee, Nomvula Mokonyane. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Before we even start with the Labour Party's conference, we're seeing what is unfolding in the Middle East. A lot of talk about it. We're bringing live visuals to our viewers. Let's start with your reaction as the chair of the subcommittee.
Thank you very much, Bongiwe, and thanks for inviting us. I was just on another platform indicating that the first time I joined the protest in South Africa, calling for a free Palestine, I was 16 years old. Today I'm 60 years, and still there's still a call for a two-stage solution in terms of the conflict. I just think, and we agree as the ANC, that the United Nations itself has to take the blame for failure to enforce the resolutions that relate to a two-state solution with regard to Israel. Secondly, that having Israel being declared an apartheid state that promotes crimes against humanity, we may all now be shocked about what we see on our television screens. But that's what ordinary Palestinians are living under on a daily basis. And there's not been any international broadcast. They've been killed in mosques. Kids have been bombed on their way to school. Women and children have been maimed by the army. And the youth of Palestine continue to defend themselves using stones, something that we in South Africa have also been exposed to. Of course, the killing of innocent citizens has to be condemned. There is no basis for attacking civilians. There is no basis of attacking private individuals' properties, but the solution lies with the world that must actually unite and condemn how Israel has continued to, even just yesterday, go out and say they are going for a total destruction of Gaza. And until now, nobody is actually calling out President Netanyahu. Nobody is making any reference to the ICC. We definitely need consistency, and we need to see the abuse of human rights and the violation of other people's rights in a consistent manner. At some point, we're misled about what is happening in Libya, what is happening in Iran. And here we are also misled about the commitments of the United Nations General Council. And we do believe that continuous support of military attacks by whoever is not sustainable. Our own history dictates for the ANC to call for ceasefire and ensure that we expedite as people of the world a peaceful solution and allow the Palestinians to determine their future and exist in a manner that they can also be recognized as an independent nation.
So looking at what has been happening over time, and as you say, I mean, painting a picture for us, taking part in a protest at the age of 16 and where you are now, a lot has happened over the decades, and a number of experts are saying that it may appear as if it's too far gone in this particular conflict to even reach a peaceful resolution, but others are saying it's not too late for people to come back to the table and try and find each other. Is it a possibility right now, looking at what has been happening, for them to find one another?
It has to be done. and it has to happen. Otherwise, we continue to be vindicated about the need for the reform of the United Nations Security Council, as well as all other multilateral platforms. And it is our strongest view that what has to happen is that through the Secretary General of the United Nations, there has to be intervention beyond just resolutions, because these resolutions have been undermined. We must also look critically at the loss of life. It's women and children who are now at the receiving end, and all of us must rise to the occasion. There's never been a lost opportunity for engagement, and no conflict actually gets resolved through violence and the use of force. We've seen what happened in Iran, we've seen what happened in Iraq, we've seen what has happened now in Libya. It has to stop. Israel has to stop. Even with us as South Africa, we can't also be dragging our feet. These guys have been very arrogant. People are calling for a protest to the Israeli embassy. They've got the arrogance of bringing the South African police services against protesters. They never receive any memorandum. They refuse to interact even with civil society in South Africa. I think it's time that we need to also look at this kind of a relationship with a system that presides over the killing of innocent women and children. Of course, it's unfortunate what Hamas has done, but as I've said, as we interact with our own comrades in Gaza, in Palestine, this is what happens to the Palestinian daily. And now that it has happened on the side of Israel, everybody thinks that this is an exclusive occurrence. It happens daily in the mosque when people pray. It happens at school. It happens in homes and in hospitals where innocent Palestinians are gathered.
So you know, one of the things that you are there for, is around the Labour Party's annual conference. We saw even the address this afternoon by the leader talking about politics being broken at this time, and also, promising a decade of renewal. That was his speech, of course, to the voters. Let's talk about this conference coming at a time when there's a strong focus on geopolitics, the Russia-Ukraine conflict, the just energy transition, and now what is happening in the Middle East. Let's talk about the significance of undertaking this visit at such a time.
The Labour Party continues to be our sister party. You will recall as well, Bongiwe, that the ANC has a history with the anti-apartheid movement, including our location in terms of one of the strategic offices of the ANC when it was banned, President Tambo, and many of our leaders operating from here in the United Kingdom. The Labour Party was very forthright in giving us the necessary support and solidarity. For the past 13 years, it had actually lost power. It has done its own self-introspection, and that's why now the leader speaks about the renewal, a decade of renewal. They look at what needs to be done. They've reflected on the geopolitics, and of course, there are areas where we agree, amongst others, the calling for the end of the blockade in Cuba, the area of solidarity with Palestine, and we've agreed to continue engaging on the conflict between Ukraine and Russia, and the expansion of NATO. Those are the only two areas that we've agreed that there has to be continuous engagement. When you read their manifesto, because they are also going into elections in 2024, they've begun to gain ground. They've won Scotland, and something that we also celebrate with them. They've put the issues around reconnecting with the base, ensuring that they assist in switching on the great British energy, and working together to bring back the NHS back on its feet, and ensuring that it becomes reliable, taking back their streets, because the crime situation has also exposed the British citizens to very atrocious incidents of crime. And the other issue that they are raising is about breaking down the barriers to opportunity and emphasis on the working class. Lastly, around the geopolitics, they agree with us that there has to be reform. They agree that there has to be reform, and they agree that we can't continue with a dominance of one against many. The respect for the rules, the respect for democracy and making democracy to work for everybody is what they are also emphasizing. Quite interesting also the mandating platforms about future ministers, their shadow ministers, and their mandating platforms where they indicate what they will do. It's also something that will learn as the ANC. But of importance is that the Labour Party itself has gone through a very challenging period, and it's on a path of renewal and self-correction.